Hi, welcome to Sacred Intelligence TV. As always, we're delighted that you joined us today. 5 years ago, First Lady Michelle Obama started an initiative, Let's Move, in order to get children to become more healthy and on the right path to a healthy lifestyle. As part of the anniversary, the First Lady has also initiated the Give Me 5, which is really going on their website and listing 5 things that you are doing to become more healthy. Eating better, having a more active lifestyle, and your overall healthy patterns in life. She'd like you to give her a list of the things that you are doing. So we want to join the bandwagon as well and urge you to become more healthy, not just because the First Lady's initiative says that you should, but because it is important to help you in having a healthier life overall, mind, body, and spirit. We are delighted today to be joined by Estelle Bogdonoff, who is a certified health coach. And she is here today to really talk to us about the ways that we can become healthier. In the first half of the show, we will learn, why did Estelle get into this in the first place? Why is it important for us to have a health program? Not just going on a diet, but having a program that will help us change our lifestyles. And in the second half of the show, she'll go more into some strategies that you can implement starting today to lead a healthier lifestyle. So I'm delighted today to have Estelle to join Susan and I. Estelle has been in the health program business for about 30 years. And again, she's a certified health coach. So there's a lot of experience that she brings to the table today. She'll tell you a little bit more about her experience as we go along, but we want to really get things moving with learning how she got into this business in the first place. So I'd like to welcome today Estelle to our show. Thank you, Estelle, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, I welcome my co-host, Susan Bainbridge. So let's get right down to it, Estelle. Tell us a little bit about your health story and why you decided to become a health coach.
Well, I have a bit of an interesting story. In 2003, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. I had been working as a community health program developer, things, and I had to stop. And what happened was, as I was recovering, I was starting to think, what do I want to do when I grow up? So what happened after that was I actually had 2 more cancers. So within a 7-year period, I had 3 cancers and 3 major surgeries. And it wiped my body out. I went into it very healthy, but I came out of it depressed and unhealthy.
Depleted in all sorts of ways, I'm sure.
Totally depleted.
Yeah.
I was no longer sick, but I wasn't healthy. And fortunately, I had a wonderful friend who got involved with this program, and I looked it over from my professional eyes and thought it was amazing, but it wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. I ate organic. I ate a lot of organic sugar. And I thought, I knew what to do. I think a lot of us know what to do. But 3 years later, I realized I had to get off the couch and I had to do something to be healthy. And I went on the program, and I was so thrilled.
Well, I think you're really speaking to a very important issue here, because often people don't understand that if they eat organically, if they are vegetarians, if they are just doing all the right things, how on earth did I, get cancer? And I don't think that we can answer that necessarily for them, but the idea is one, I think that the healthier you are going into those situations, your prognosis, I believe, is a little bit better as well, and that then to continue or to start doing some things differently is really important.
Absolutely. I ended up losing 25 pounds.
When
I went through this program. Okay. And what's interesting is that I gained in chemo the exact same amount of weight that I gained when I was pregnant with both of my children, which they actually say is a good thing to gain weight when you're going into chemo. But I also went into instant menopause, and I came out overweight, unhealthy, not active. I mean, I was doing some walking, but I really wasn't active. And I was given a gift. I was really given the gift of health, and I realized, wow, I am here for a reason. And maybe this is the reason. I have a gift that I can now share with other people.
I'm just curious, you said it took you 3 years before you decided to do the program that you'll talk a little bit about. Why 3 years? What do you think the process was? And of course, you know, with Susan and I being therapists, we're always interested in the mental processes that people go through in making their decisions. So why 3 years?
Well, when Susan first started on the program, I still had one more surgery.
Not the
to
Susan.
do. Not that Susan.
Yes.
My health coach and my mentor. When she first started on the program, it was either right after I had my last surgery or right before. So I just wasn't ready. I had to deal with that. But then it just took me a while to wrap my head around it. And I had many excuses, but we all know that excuses are exactly that. They don't make up for change. And sometimes change can be difficult, but I finally realized that I had to do something, or I was going to end up probably infirmed and not a healthy older person, and I didn't want to age that way. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to give up the gift that I'd been given of life.
Mm-hmm. So I just heard you say something really important, which was Susan is your health coach and your mentor. So why is it important that we have health coaches, and a health coach is what you are? So why can't I just decide I'm going to have a healthier lifestyle and just do it?
Well, you can, and some people do.
I can't,
But-
by the way.
But a lot of people decide that they're going to have a healthier lifestyle. But it's not about willpower. It's really about what does that mean to them? And it's about the determination to get there. So what I do as a health coach is I support them and I guide them. I'm not the expert. Fortunately, we have Johns Hopkins, who is the expert for that. But we're guiding them, we're supporting them. Why is it important to have a health coach? That one-on-one mentoring and coaching, they have found to be the most critical element in not only achieving better health, but maintaining it. And actually a new study, and I apologize for not knowing where it's from, but it was in a medical journal, just was published recently that showed that that is one of the single most factors.
I would think that, you know, one of the important reasons would be accountability as well, and someone who can help you with what you don't know. So for instance, I find, and I've had a lot of coaches on the show, and I find that in business, for instance, I have a business coach who can tell me things about business that I don't know. And I think health is probably the same way. We're under these assumptions about things that if I'm doing X, Y, and Z, then I guess I'm being healthy. But maybe as a health coach, I think from reading your program, you go a little bit more in depth with a number of things. And so I would think a health coach is valuable in that way as well, just letting you know what you don't know in a nice and gentle way, you know, guiding people through some new avenues. And
yeah, and that's absolutely true. And fortunately, we have the Habits of Health system that I use, that's used at Johns Hopkins. So I don't have to research it out and be the expert. It's all there. And I am just pointing the way, but I'm also helping the person figure out for themselves why they really want this. Getting new clothes, looking good for the wedding, energy, that's great. But let's go a little bit deeper. And what's triggering for you? So you went to the party and you knew that you wanted good health, you've talked to me about it, and then you ate the piece of cake. So what's that all about? And it's not me judging them or even them judging themselves, you move on, but trying to figure out what causes the behaviors that you're doing that lead to poor health as opposed to better health, which is what you're ultimately telling me you want.
And I think one of the things that I found interesting in kind of looking over your bio and talking with Caroline before, this idea not just of I want to be healthier, but an idea of optimal health. And it seems to me, and I think that what you would say is that has a lot of components. It's not just about exercising, eating organic, whatever.
Right. Optimal health means something different to everyone, just as getting healthier means something. Some people don't have a weight loss. They don't need to. I would never have Terry lose a But what it really means is that it's a holistic approach, and that it encompasses not just your physical health, which could be more than weight, it could be your sleep, things like that, but it's also your
sleep,
it's your motion.
Yeah.
Then there's your mental health component. Are you stressed? Are you able to do the things that you enjoy doing? Are your mindfulness? And then there's your financial health. Because if you're stressed in any one of those areas, it's going to affect the other.
So as a coach, you're tapping into all of those areas?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I think that's something that has been researched for a long time now. I know that one of the things that I've used often with people that I work with is called the stress test. And it's not the kind of stress test that you go in to your doctor for, but it just lists life events and says, check off everything that has happened to you within the last 12 months. And it could be things like the death of a loved one, or a divorce, or starting a new job, or having celebrated the holidays with family, or what, it could be even good things, but things that do add stress to our lives. And when you come up with a total, and I'm going to apologize because I likewise can't place the name, but it is something that you can
it's
Google
very
pretty,
common.
yeah. And just from the number, you can figure out, okay, so what are your chances of developing a health condition within the next, say, 2-3 years? And things like hypertension or, asthma, diabetes, whatever it is. And certainly, yeah, I think stress is a huge component when it comes to
And I will vouch for that.
So I'm curious as a health coach, because I know what we would do as therapists with helping people, because some things are just going to happen in life, and people have stress that they have to deal with. And so that's why we're in the business that we're in, because we help people with the processing of that and dealing with it from day to day. But how would you, as a health coach, tackle some of the stressful situations in terms of helping people to think holistically about a healthy lifestyle?
Well, I think it's wonderful that there are therapists versus coaches, because I'm not a therapist. And if I see that somebody really is having what I would consider to be beyond my capabilities, I want to be able to say, maybe you really need to talk with someone.
So it's really about guiding them and directing them.
So it's guiding them for that, for those resources. But in terms of what I would do with stress, I'm really looking at their habits and their behavior patterns. So if they, when they are under stress, open the refrigerator or watch TV instead of taking a walk, I'll ask them to look at that. And it's all where they want to go, not where I want them to go. It's about them. But what I might do is suggest, is there another way that you can positively handle some of the stress.
I like that. I like, first of all, I appreciate the fact that you're saying you would guide people to therapy, because I think all too often people do, say, well, I could be your therapist, jokingly sort of thing, and feel like that they can just do what we do, and it's a process. And so I appreciate that. As I heard one coach say to me, she says, well, I consider myself as a coach the vitamin, but the therapist is really the antibiotic. And so what you're doing is really valuable, because we do a lot of behavioral techniques with what we do. You are getting them started on the road to taking a look at it. And it helps to make our jobs a little bit easier when you come, because they're already instituting some patterns, some changes in the patterns that they have. And then we can deal with, a little bit more in depth with, like, what is the psychological stuff that's going on for you. But I really like that. Maybe by the end of the show, I'll have some changes. Instead of, you said watching television. As soon as you said watching television instead of taking a walk, I was like, yeah, there are probably some times.
There are often little things that we can do, but one of the things where I think what you said in terms of, when they come to you, they're already, I think probably the single most important thing is to become mindful.
Yes.
And once it's in your head and you're mindful of it, then you're able to enact changes.
Yes.
But if you're not even mindful of it, so as they gain their healthy habits through the coaching and the support that we offer, they may be digging deeper enough to say, oh, you know what? Maybe this is beyond, the coaching, maybe what I really need to do. Or why do they keep, let's say, go off program or stop the healthy habits? Then maybe they need to look a little deeper at that. And I can help them in some ways. But again, I'm not a social worker, I'm not a psychologist, I'm a health coach.
But I think with being a health coach, what is really interesting, and I know we'll get into it a little bit more about people with the yo-yo dieting and all of that, is that you're helping people to see why it's not just about the dieting, the losing the weight, the exercising. You're saying, let's go a little bit further and look at the lifestyle, the overall lifestyle, because we all know people who are good at losing 50, 60 pounds, and they're great for a while at that weight, and then all of a sudden they've gained the weight back. So what happened in that?
Right, and that's what we do. And I like to call myself a healthy living coach. Because it's not about the short term, it's really about the long term. And we know that through support and through gathering a community of like-minded people around you, you are more likely to keep off that weight and maintain those healthy habits over 5 years.
So you just said support, and I'm going to throw this out there. How do you have the conversations with people about, as a health coach, obviously people are coming to you because they want to, but what if you have a family member or a friend or whoever it might be, and you want to have those conversations? What do you do? Because it isn't about the weight. It could be, I'll give you an example. My husband constantly says to me, you need to exercise. And I do a little bit. So how do you have the conversations with people to say, it's important for you to do. My sister says it all the time too, so.
Well, I would say having the conversations with your family probably starts with you modeling the behavior. Certain family members, and I have one, I have a very large extended family, and there was one family member I would love to help her. But I know that I just can't go there. She knows what I do. She knows I can impact people. And when she's ready, if ever, I will let her approach me. We tune out people who tell us what to do.
That is incredibly true. Very true.
So what we need to do is find a way to have a conversation more about, are you doing the things that you love to do? Do you love to garden, but you can't get down on your knees? Do you want to play with your children, but you can't, get through? There is one health coach I know who, before she became a health coach, decided to join do the program because she could not fit through the turnstile at Disneyland when she took her son. And that, to her, was the turning point. Now, for her, optimal health meant running a marathon.
Wow.
So she did.
That's a big difference.
That's a huge difference. So optimal health, you take it where you want to go, but you need to take the first step. And I always suggest that you start a little bit smaller steps, baby steps. You're not going to go from being unhealthy, not moving, no matter what your weight, to running a marathon next week, just like I'm not going to ever be a concert pianist.
Yes, I share that passion.
And it's interesting because, when you're talking about support, I think probably many people, well, I don't know if I want to say many, certainly a certain percentage of people would say, okay, but I have supportive people in my life. I have friends and family who are, willing to be my cheerleaders. And one of the things that I think is important about the fact that you are this, as a therapist, as we are, we're the sort of objective outsider. And I know, for instance, that, okay, so my daughter, for instance, would never take sort of counseling type advice from me. She would brush it off, tell me breathing exercises were ridiculous, and etc. And would almost mock me about the fact that that's all I do, is teach people how to breathe, do breathing exercises. Yeah. And of course that's not true. But then when she found a therapist to work with that she liked, she was telling her the same things I've been telling her since she was born, but you can't hear it always, certainly from your parents. It's very hard to hear.
What do we know
things.
as mothers?
Right,
Yeah.
Clearly we're ignorant. So I think it's really important to have somebody who you feel is being completely honest with you, giving you objective advice, who doesn't have any sort of vested interest in what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say exactly that. I do have a vested interest.
Yeah, okay, yes, fair enough.
And I always say, I'll believe in you until you believe in yourself. But I do think the support, and I'm available, but sometimes even our loved ones just know how to push that button.
Or we think they're pushing the button even when they aren't trying to, because it's our stuff. So
That's
the minute
true.
they say any little thing, we're like, why did you say that? And they're trying to say it in love.
But what I always say to people is, if you can buddy up with someone to do it together, you're going to be more successful.
So Estelle, how long would a person need to keep their health coach?
I'm with you for forever. If I'm a fit, then I never leave my clients. I may not be calling them every week, but I'll touch base with them a few times a year, and they're always getting my newsletter and whatever, and I'm always available to them. Holiday season you mentioned, well, that's a big stressor for a lot of people, and that's when they're like, oh my gosh, I gotta face the holidays, I don't want to regain the weight, or I don't have time to exercise. Because like I said, not everybody needs to lose weight. I don't have time to do this, or whatever it is. And great, let's talk. Let's come up with a strategy.
So I wonder, we're talking about optimal health here, and it's really about whether people want to lose weight or not, whatever their goal is. And I remember years ago, this woman, Monique, who actually is a Oscar winner.
Right.
And years ago, she classified herself like as a big woman. I don't know. She had a show on that was all about large women. And I know for some people, they're completely proud of being who they are, and they wear it with like, I look good, embrace your bigness. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but what happened with Monique, and what I always say is, but are you healthy? So it's one thing to say, yes, I'm this size and I love it, and whatever beauty you want to see in that, you can see that. But we do have to question the healthy part of it. So what happened with Monique is that I think she started looking at it from a health perspective, and then people started to talk about her when she lost weight. These women who had kind of glorified her and embraced their size because she had said, this is great to do. And so they said to her, well, now you're turning on us. And her thing was about, I had to determine what was healthy and what wasn't healthy for me. And it wasn't healthy for me to have this weight on. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, I mean, I know people are coming to you because they want to come to you, but again, and it gets back to what we were talking about before, how do we help people, even if we're just talking to a large group of people and maybe not one-to-one, how do we help people to understand what's healthy and not healthy?
Well, one of the things that I do when I'm talking to a group, and I do it individually as well, is I have a very easy health assessment, and they rate themselves. So they can really look and see where they are on a scale of 1 to 10. And you're right, it's not about the looks. For some people, that's where they start. Unfortunately, there's a lot of prejudice against heavy people, and that's not what it's about. It's about you living the life that you want to live, being able to do the things you want to do, and have that health so that you can do that. So I start with that. I start with their own health assessment. Mm-hmm. So they can look, and it's the optimal health. Maybe where do they want to start? And then I just talk to them. I get to know them, and I just talk about what would that mean to you if you could change it. What would it mean to you if you actually got uninterrupted 7 hours of sleep? How would that affect your life?
She just keeps throwing that sleep around there.
It's important. So important.
Well, a lot of people don't drink water.
That's true.
You know, what it would mean to you if you actually were drinking and stayed hydrated. You know, do you think you might feel any different? Are you willing to try that for a week and see if that feels any different?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what you're really talking about is our relationship with ourselves, and really ultimately our relationship with other people, which I'll get into with you a little bit later. But let's talk about this relationship that we have with ourselves, because what you are asking people to do is really take a look at yourselves. You're asking them not just looking at the physical, but you're saying, I want you to gain some insight with why you behave the way that you do. And I think that's powerful, because weight loss is not just, I just had this conversation with my daughter the other day. I said, and she's young, and I said, no, you're not going to diet, because you can diet, and then if you haven't changed your mindset, you will gain the weight back, and you'll just be on this life of dieting. So can you talk a little bit about this yo-yo dieting that people do and breaking the cycle? I'm sure that, I mean, you've really kind of hit on some of it already, but are there other things that you could add to?
Yeah, well, what happens when we yo-yo diet is that something motivates us to change. It's usually something external. So the wedding's coming up, or the holidays are coming up, whatever it is.
Or bathing suit season.
Or bathing suit season.
Your cruise. I wouldn't know about that, but
whatever's
some people
coming
do.
up. So it's not really intrinsic. It's really external. And we get all fired up, and we go on a diet. And maybe we lose the weight. And we're all excited. And then we kind of lose our motivation, because the wedding's gone, I lost the weight, I look great, I'm going to reward myself, I'm going to have the piece of cake. And we lose those habits because we have not made them habits. So to break that cycle, you need to figure out the intrinsic motivation. What's coming from here? And that takes a lot of work. Unfortunately, people, especially as we get older, we've lost sight of how to dream. And how we can, dream about what our life would be like, or what kind of life do we want to have.
And it's really behavior modification is what it is, because what I think is that, yes, it worked for the wedding, you lost the weight, but you didn't change overall your pattern. You didn't change your way of thinking, because thinking impacts our behavior. And if you don't change that, you're going to go back to the same thing. So it's so important. But and we have to know the things that we can have and can't have. Some people can eat this much of chocolate and be done with it. I can't. So you have to know what works for you individually as well, because just because you could do it doesn't mean I could do it. And when I first stopped eating a lot of sweets, like candy and cake and ice cream, I love all that stuff. I just don't eat it. And people would say to me, "You're more disciplined than that. You can have a piece." And I would say to them, "No, well, actually, I'm not. My discipline is not having it. If I have a little bit of it, I'll want more." And I know that about me. So let me be okay with the choices that I'm making. And again, that gets back to the support, but about our relationships with ourselves, which is important for us.
That's critical. And what are our triggers? And why is that triggering it? Are we eating because we're bored? Are we eating because we're stressed? What's our excuse for not moving? I mean, there are so many simple things that you can do. But, what are all of our habits that we can make small little changes so that the habits that make us healthier and decrease our stress, help our mental, which ultimately will help our financial, let's take those and incorporate those, and the longer you do them, the more they become your habits. And that support, what you mentioned, that is so critical. I can't tell you how many times people will tell me, "How do we show our love for our families?" "We feed them." Well, that's great. That's wonderful. Or we go to, the banquets, or we do whatever.
Look at Mother's Day. What do we do
Mother's
for
Day.
moms on Mother's Day?
We take them out.
The line is out the door.
Right, which is great. That's a one-time, it's about abundance. It's not about deprivation, it's about abundance. But if every time you're confronted and you say, "Oh yeah, I can just have that one little piece of cake," well, that one little piece of cake adds up, and honey, you cannot outrun your fork.
Yeah. I say to my daughter all the time, because both of them actually love sweets, and I'll say to one of them, "Listen, that is going to catch up with you one day. You have to stop eating all of those sweets. It's good right now, but trust me."
Well, you know what? I love sweets too. And I have learned how to adjust that. And to me, if it's in the freezer, I'm not going to go for it. That doesn't work for everybody. And I love to bake.
No, that won't work for me.
No, I love to bake.
Yeah.
So if I make a chocolate cake, I slice it up. My husband and I will share one piece. And by the way, I live with a thin family. And the rest goes in the freezer. And then I have to really think if I really, really want that cake.
Okay, so Adele, you've just given us one strategy that works for you,
For me.
right? Give us some more strategies that people can use, because what I'd really like our viewers to do is to walk away from today's show thinking about what are some things that they can put into place right now. And I'm saying viewers, I might take the challenge as well. But what are some things we can do?
Well, one of the key things that we use, which was developed by Dr. Wayne Scott Anderson, who's a leader in the field and developed our habits of health, is stop, challenge, choose. So you
Say that again?
stop, challenge, choose.
Okay.
So there's that piece of cake. So you stop yourself before you just automatically reach for it and challenge yourself. Do I really want that piece of cake? Why do I want that piece of cake? What will that piece of cake, how will that affect my long-term goals? And then the choice is always yours. You make the choice. Am I going to have that piece of cake or aren't I?
So if you're what you're really saying is if we give it some thought, like really spend some time thinking about it, we can make a better choice. But if we just kind of say, I'll have it,
Yeah, without
we're not thinking.
It's just stopping in the moment, and it doesn't have to be around food. It can be almost around anything that we do. Just take a moment, take a breath.
And often we don't want to think about it because we would rather have it. I have this habit of, and it waxes and wanes. Sometimes I'm really good at not doing it. I don't particularly like to eat after 9 o'clock at night, but I'll go through these periods of where I'll just have to have a bowl of cereal before I go to bed. And my kids will say, Mom, you don't need that bowl of cereal. And I'll say, I can have this bowl of cereal. It's fine for me to have it. And they'll say, but Mom, you're not even really hungry. Why are you eating this bowl of cereal? And they're absolutely right. I don't need it. It's just habit that I have. And like I said, sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't. And sometimes it's also a substitute because I don't do the sweets. It's like just something else for me to crunch on. And it would be fine if I were going to stay up maybe and do something else, but if I'm not, so they are always challenging me. So now I will stop, challenge, and choose. So I will put that into practice. I'm going to stop, challenge, and choose, and try not to talk myself out of, yeah, I can still go ahead and have it, but really being more mindful because it's not.
Be mindful.
Yeah.
Or, there's times where, I know I should go out and take a walk. Oh, it's so gloomy out. I don't feel like doing that. Stop yourself right there and just give yourself a minute, take a breath, then challenge yourself. Why don't I really want to go out? What would it do for my health if I did go out? What would it do for my mind if I did go out? Do I have a raincoat in the closet I can use? And then choose. The choice is always in our hands.
Are there other strategies that you would recommend as well? I mean, I think that that's a great one, but are there maybe just some other techniques that we can kind of think about in terms of implementing healthier choices? I mean, I like the strategies that you say you employ for you, but are there some other things that might be?
Well, one of the things when you were talking about the cereal that came to mind was, how often are you eating? Because we think about babies. Babies don't have 3 square meals. I have no idea where that came from. We need to fuel our bodies. We need to be eating smaller meals every 2 to 3 hours. So if at that point of time where you're having that cereal, and I do agree that you shouldn't eat for at least an hour before you go to bed, but maybe it's been 4 hours since you ate. So maybe there is something triggering, saying, oh, your body may be saying to you, you know what, I really need a little fuel here.
Yeah. One of the things I know in terms of strategies that my sister said a friend would always ask her, is it worth the calories? When she was trying to decide whether she wanted to eat something. And she once had this lady in her office who was just a friend of hers. She says, oh, I'm going to walk down the street and get, I don't know, some pastry or something she wanted. And this coworker in the office said, no, you don't need that. And but they had that kind of relationship. She said, you don't need that. And so she just didn't do it after that because it was simply just having a person who was like an accountability person, someone who was close enough to say, do you really want to do that? And I think that maybe there are certain questions you can ask yourself or the accountability partners too that might work.
Which is exactly it. It's, why am I doing this? Do I really want this? How would this benefit me? It's just like running a 5K or a marathon, you train. So it's those, stretch those muscles and stretch your brain muscle a little bit and just keep working at it little by little. And I would say start small. Take those little baby steps. Eat breakfast in the morning. How many people rush off with just a cup of coffee? And that's not fuel. You need something. Mm-hmm. Or how many people feed the dog, they might get their kids off, but they haven't taken care of themselves.
So I think, what even though we've addressed the fact that there are a lot of components, we've mostly been talking about healthy bodies. And of course, our specialty is more healthy minds.
Right.
So, but there's also healthy finances. Can you tell us anything there? Where do you start with people on that?
Well, I just ask people if they're happy with what they're doing. I'm not a financial advisor. Mm-hmm. I ask them if, do they have the money that they want to do the things that they want to do? Are there things that they haven't been able to do? Do they want to save more for retirement? Do they have young children? Do they have, wherever they are in their life? Are they, but the main thing is, are they stressed out and are they happy doing what they want to do? And if they aren't, then let's look at that. And they may be somebody who wants to be involved with health, and we do have the health coaching opportunity for them, but they may not be, and they're just may be looking. And how is your stress in those other areas impacting that? And if you are unhappy in what you're doing, it is definitely going to impact. It's going to impact your relationships. It's going to impact your health. It's going to have a huge impact on yourself. And if you're stressed about finances, and we know so many people are stressed about finances.
I don't know anybody.
It's a huge impact.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The 1%.
Right. But they're stressed about something else. So
it doesn't buy them good health.
Right. So wow, so
medicine.
So what I really like about what you're saying with this whole program, and I want you to talk a little bit more about your program, if you don't mind, just in terms of what you would do if I came to you. You've talked a lot about it, but just to sort of crystallize it for people who are watching, what would some of the steps be when I work with you? What would the first thing be that you would do? What would it look like?
Well, the first thing I would do is what we have been talking about all along. I would find out what it means to you, and where are you? You and Susan and I are all going to be in very different places. So what is it? And is it a fit for you? Because everybody has to find what's a fit for them. Mm-hmm. So if it's not a fit for you, that's okay. I hope you get something from what I got. I always recommend that they still get Dr. Anderson's books because they're invaluable. Mm-hmm. And find something that works for you. So once I know why they're motivated and what they're going for, I will then discuss with them the program that we use, which is clinically tested, used at Johns Hopkins. We do have a structured meal plan, and we are teaching people how to eat healthy as they go along and as they are losing the weight, or if they're already optimally healthy, how to maintain that. But what we use is this Habits of Health system. And that was developed by Dr. Wayne Scott Anderson because he saw people, he was a critical care physician, and he was saving people's lives who could have saved their own, and decided he'd need to save his own life as well. So he developed the system, and it's just amazing because it just helps us. We have a tool that guides you through it. And there's a wonderful workbook that we work with people with. And then we have a whole system of support, which is amazing. We have nutritionists, doctors, nurses, all the wonderful things online. But the main centerpiece is that one-on-one coaching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, with, and this, I guess, gets back to the support, but it also gets to our shared relationships. What do you do in those situations where there's a person, like, let's say if I'm the one that's on this kick to get healthy in my family, but the other people, they're not on board with it. How do you deal with that, and how do you help? There are lots of questions from that, but one is, how do you help them to also come aboard, because you're modeling already and they're not coming aboard, but they're also not supporting you, and I imagine that that's very hard when you are the one trying to do, what's right for your lifestyle. But so I'll give you an example. This is not the case for me, but I'm going to use myself as an example. My husband is the cook in our house. So let's say I wanted to suddenly start eating differently, but he's not on board with it, and he's the one that's doing the cooking, but not really supporting my need or want or desire to have a different lifestyle. What would you recommend for something like that?
I would have a heart-to-heart talk with him, is what I would recommend. And then maybe go see the therapist.
Or maybe cook my own meals?
Or cook your own meals. But I would have a heart-to-heart talk with him, because does he want you around for the long haul or the short haul? And what's going on with that? But it's very difficult if you don't have someone. And that's why I always say, okay, if your family isn't supporting you, find somebody else who will do this with you.
Right. Because I've seen it. I've seen people lose the weight, but other family members aren't on board with it, and it becomes hard. Especially if you're from a big family, and like you said, food is what people do. It can be hard to do that. It's
very much, to me, a similar situation for somebody who is in recovery. Okay, so I'm a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, so people with addictions may many times have, maybe their partner is the one that they've always used with. And if they get clean, but their partner doesn't, that's a constant trigger for them. And that's a very tough position to be in, I think. And so, okay, so maybe,
That's very
cake is not the same as cocaine, but a very similar dynamic.
Yeah, I think the
in-
results are different, in terms of what it does to our body, but the truth of the matter is we are addicted to foods that we eat, and even when you think about sugar, we are addicted to sugar because the more sugar you eat, the more your body craves that sugar, which is why for me, I know that there's certain things when I cut it out, I have to just...
And it's not just the sugar, there's portion control, there's the different, unfortunately, we live the United States has the wonderful distinction of being number one in obesity. And even Colorado has joined us now. And we're seeing young children, because they're modeling. What we've seen through our program is that families change. And this is what I love from going from public health to the one-on-one. Because by helping one person, I'm most likely helping the family change, and then I'm helping the community change. So I'm probably doing more for the community now than I did in 30 years of doing community health promotion. And yes, it is difficult, but there are ways. I would recommend just having that conversation and finding someone else to buddy up, and texting me every time. Hey, let's go out and have a drink. And I have a joke about the people who, a lot of the comments go, I'd have to give up my wine. And I said, well, it's about abundance. You can have your wine once you get to where you want to be and integrate that. Oh, I couldn't give up my wine. And I go, I've got a great program for you, and it has 12 steps.
Well, what I really think is really just great about the whole healthy lifestyle, it goes back to what we talk about all the time on here with the sacred, selfish, and shared. And the way I see it is that we are sacred beings, and to be concerned about how we present ourselves, and that our bodies are really temples, that we have to really be careful about what we're putting in and also what we let come out as well, because there are things that come out that is not exemplary of our bodies being temples. But if we think about it, I know that you talk from a health perspective in terms of strategies, but as a therapist, one of the first things that I would kind of think about doing is really sitting in that quiet space as well, and just being in tune with what really are you guided to do in terms of mentally. Is your body guiding you to do something differently? Because people know, just like they know when they come to us for therapy, often they already know what it is they're supposed to do. And so really to sit in that space and figure out, why am I not doing this? What is it that I should be doing? What are, like you said, what are the triggers that are coming up for me? And so I would first kind of offer just sitting in that space, just sitting in that space and saying, what the heck is going on with me? And we all have to do that. And I love with your health program that it's not just about losing weight. It's really about a healthy lifestyle. And so if I start first with that place of sacredness, that I am a divine being, and that really I need to be concerned about how I treat my body. That would go a long ways. And then just really then delving more into the selfish piece of what's going on for me. And that's where you come in with helping people to say, what are the triggers? I like that. What are the triggers for me? And even if people haven't thought about those things before, if you sit long enough with it and you are really true to digging deep into what's going on, you'll find the answer. And sometimes it's right there at the surface. We've just tried to cover it up. So I like that. And then the third piece with the shared aspect. If I'm feeling better about myself, I'm going to treat you differently, and I'm going to treat you differently. If I can get rid of some of those stressors in my life, then maybe I won't snap at the kids, or maybe I won't snap at my husband, or maybe, I won't snap at the driver or the cashier, whatever the case may be. It all works together in terms of the sacred, selfish, and shared piece that we often talk about here on the show. And so I thank you for the strategies that really you've kind of outlined for us today in terms of stop, challenge yourself, and then choose, make a choice, and just know you always have a choice with whether to do it or not. But also I think you talked about just some practical things to do as well. For you, it might be freezing your food, but what are things that you can do to stop yourself? You know what those things are, and that each thing is individual, so you're asking us to take a look at that. And also you've asked us to take a look at how often are we fueling ourselves? So do we give ourselves fuel in the morning, throughout the day? Do we skip breakfast? I mean, those are really just some very practical things that we can start to take a look at today. But I think that when you and I talked, you talked about wanting to make an offer to our viewers.
I did.
So I'd like you to share that a little bit.
So what I would like to offer is a free strategy session to anybody who would like to see how they can get healthier. And I think it's so important what you said about just being in that space, and oftentimes that health assessment and just talking with them, that thought process goes on long after I've stopped talking to them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's in the pauses.
So I think that's great. Now, how can people get in touch with you if they would like to have the strategy session, and then are you cutting it off at a certain number of people?
No, I'm very flexible. I do it all over the phone.
Okay.
So nobody has to go, and I believe that you have my email on the...
Yes, actually it's on camera now, but why don't you tell us, why don't you say it?
It's healthestelle@gmail.com, and you can reach me right through there. I'm also on Facebook with Get Healthy with Estelle, and you can reach me through that. And I'll be happy to set up a time to talk with you.
Okay, I think that would be absolutely great for people to reach out to you and to learn more about the program and how you can help them. I think I've learned some things today, and I think I did learn some things I can take with me and try to start implementing as well. It's but really also changing my mindset, because I'm good with stopping it for a while, but really being committed to it.
And it's not just stopping what we don't need to do, but starting what we need to do, like walking or posture. Do you know you
Right.
can burn calories just by sitting straight?
Okay, so listen, my kids are going to say something about. They're always saying, "Mommy, you need to sit up. You need to sit up." So if they watch the show, they'll say, "You see, Mom, we've been
And
telling
we
you."
have an online challenge every month, and you don't have to be in our program. It's just support and tips, and it's so much fun. And again, if they contact me at Health Estelle, I'll be able to tell them more. And I love what the little video says, which is just take your shoulders and put them in their pockets.
Well, that's what we're going to do, Estelle. Thank you so much for joining us today. We
Thank
are
you for
excited
having me.
that you came to join us. And we are excited, as always, that you have joined us. We hope that you learned a lot today and that you have some strategies that you can implement to have a healthier lifestyle. If you'd like more information about us and our work that we do, contact us at info@sacredintelligence.com. And until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful day and week. Bye-bye.